Hi everyone. Thank you for checking out my creative project here. So this project here that I'm doing is trying to take the themes from my paper and the concepts that I've been working with and trying to put them into some sort of visual presentation. So I came up with a chart that really helps to explain the flow of my paper and what I'm trying to demonstrate and how I'm trying to put together these concepts from this semester into a flow or format that makes sense. All right, so I have this chart here. If you notice on the x-axis, you'll see that I have high entropy on the left, um, low entropy on the right, and then on the y-axis, I have low agency on the bottom and high agency on the top. I'll obviously go into what each of these things mean and what the quadrants mean throughout the presentation. So the titles of the quadrants, the titles that I chose, each of the quadrants will be named, and they're based on Aristotle's four causes. I found that they seem to line up well with the explanation that Aristotle gives of the four causes of existence, of things that exist. So the first one is material determinism, the first quadrant. Um, the second is formal determinism. The third is efficient indeterminism. The fourth quadrant is transcendent indeterminism. Okay, let me go into the first quadrant here, material determinism. So in material determinism, you'll see first that we have high entropy on the left, low agency at the top. This means that these are systems or entities that exist in high disorder and have low agency, respond basically just to cause and effect. They don't have the ability to respond beyond to an effect, beyond, I mean, to a cause beyond just the typical effect given by the laws of physics. So I call this the Big Bang zone. There's uniform structure, but no agency. So the structure is of the in this area tends to be uniform without order or pattern. So in this quadrant would be things like gases, liquids, vapors, single atoms, the universe right after the Big Bang, and the heat death of the universe. Things that exist in states of high entropy and low agency are completely determined by cause and effect. The Newtonian laws of motion and mechanistic science. Their structures tend to be uniform with little to no order, and their molecules are dispersed, reaching thermal equilibrium, wherein the energy and heat within the system are evenly dispersed throughout the whole. They also have low energy available to use. Black holes exist at maximum entropy and are the cause of increasing entropy in the universe. So the universe right after the Big Bang had very high entropy, but it actually got higher throughout the existence of the universe because black holes, exclusively because of the existence of black holes, have increased the entropy within the universe. The heat death of the universe. So this is like the beginning and the end of the universe. The end of the universe will be what they call, if you've ever heard the term heat death, will be a state of highest possible entropy. So it's sort of this state where everything is, all molecules are completely dispersed and spread out. There's no exchange of heat anymore. Everything is the same temperature. There's no heat available to do work or form order anymore. And so the universe would basically be frozen in motion. Okay, if the atoms in this quadrant begin to cohere, or a system begins to cohere and structure begins to form, the entropy within the system begins to lower, and it moves towards the right into the next quadrant. So we'll go into that next quadrant now. That's the quadrant of formal determinism. In formal determinism, you have low entropy with low agency determined by cause and effect. So it's still determined by cause and effect, but now it has low entropy. So it has more order within the system. It starts to develop pattern and structure that's ordered. I call this the zombie zone because it's like structure with no agency. If you think of like a zombie as like a human being or a body with no brain or no ability to think. That's sort of what I think of when I think of dissipative structures or things that are in this quadrant. Large structure, they don't have to be large, but they can be large with structure, and but really no agency, no ability to counter the laws of physics or cause and effect. So dissipative structures, tornadoes, galaxies, solar systems, Earth, whirlpools, the growth of a crystal out of a solution, phase transitions from gas to liquid to solids. These are all examples of what would exist in this quadrant. In this state, matter is beginning to use energy to form an open and increasingly ordered system that is far from thermal equilibrium. The structures are still determined by the laws of electrodynamics, motion, and thermodynamics, and they do not self replicate. They are able to assemble and maintain highly ordered structures. So, that far from thermal equilibrium means that, when I describe the heat death of the universe, if all temperature is the same, that's thermal equilibrium. And so, in these entities or systems here in this quadrant, you find that they're far from thermal equilibrium. They are preserving heat and preserving energy. Dissipative structures, a term coined by Ilya Prigogine, emerge spontaneously and can be locally chaotic, yet remain globally ordered in their structure through a strange attractor. So, when we were talking about chaos theory and reading about it, this interested me. These dissipative structures and the notion of a strange attractor in a chaotic system. So, in dissipative structures, you can have the same tendency where they are locally chaotic, in the micro level, but then on a macro level, they're globally ordered. They remain structured. Negentropy is the term for reverse entropy, things becoming more ordered. So we have entropy, which is a state moving towards disorder or moving towards equilibrium. And negentropy is the opposite of that. It's when things become more ordered and become, start to develop discrete parts and discrete elements to them, patterns. As these highly structured and open systems continue to dissipate energy, molecular autocatalytic events can occur that begin the development of cell formation. This begins the movement towards agency in the next quadrant. So we'll move up now to the next quadrant where things start to develop agency. This one is efficient indeterminism. In efficient indeterminism, you have low entropy still, like in the quadrant below it, but now you start to develop high agency. You start to develop self-creation, and things are no longer just causally determined. I call it the life zone because it's where high structure and high agency exists, and it's where things first come to life. This quadrant is characterized by the development of autopoietic structures that begin to self-create and self-replicate. The closed autonomy needed to create and replicate these systems separates them from non-living, open, dissipative structures. These cells develop from autocatalytic chemical reactions, although the exact process of how life developed is still unknown. Autopoietic systems are structurally coupled with their environment and develop sensory motor responses to cues in their environment. These instinctual responses are a rudimentary form of cognition, but not necessarily consciousness. So they're aware of their environment, they're coupled with their environment, they develop almost like nervous system reactions to their environment and to the things in their environment, but it's not necessarily consciousness. They're cognitively aware of their surroundings. But all the way at the top of this, the highest agency, consciousness starts to develop in humans. Autopoiesis, term coined by Chilean biologists Umberto Maturana and Francisco Varela to describe a self-generating system. A key element of autopoiesis is that the process of self-generation happens in tandem with the environment. So this is very important that the structure and the reactions that are going on are tied into the environment. So it's not just sort of the environment is not just by chance. They're connected. This caused philosopher Donna Haraway to eschew the term as too self-oriented, and she offered sympoiesis as an alternative term to kind of demonstrate that these things aren't just developing on their own, but they're developing in tandem with their environment. Examples can be from eukaryotic cells to algae and trees, to viruses and mice, all the way up to humans. As agency increases, consciousness and free will beyond instinct develops in humans. Conceptual development in creative free will leads to high informational entropy because it is indeterminate. The development of free, creative, conscious possibility moves us into the next quadrant. Okay, so this is the final quadrant here, transcendent indeterminism. This is the one that really interested me the most when I began this project, because I was trying to see how what it would be like for something to have high agency, able to create itself, not be causally determined, but yet have high entropy, meaning disordered and low, seemingly low pattern or structure. Transcendent indeterminism, I call this the ghostly zone because it's almost like disembodied consciousness or disembodied knowledge or pure creative possibility. In this fourth quadrant, cognition emerges into human consciousness, knowledge and creative free will. It is marked by high entropy, but not in the same sense as used in the other three quadrants. In this quadrant, material existence has been transcended, and the entropy is understood as informational entropy. So in this quadrant, we are kind of talking about consciousness as a supra or meta uh, entity that exists sort of beyond just the physical realm. Um, it's sort of kind of like collective human consciousness. In this quadrant, material existence has been transcended, and the entropy is understood as informational entropy. There is no longer an ordered physical structure that needs to be maintained, so entropy can remain high. The hallmark of this high entropy is the creative freedom that knowledge and awareness brings. So, if we think of something like an author writing a book, that author may die, and um, but the book, the information, the knowledge that has been transcribed into that book remains on. It exists regardless of the physical brain that it existed in. Informational entropy, a concept developed by mathematician Claude Shannon, also called Shannon entropy. This system calculates the amount of order in an information packet versus the degrees of freedom in how the information can be assembled. Very patterned and restrictive information packets have low entropy, while less rigid information packets that can be dispersed in more creative ways have higher entropy. In recent research, biochemist Jose Luis Perez Velazquez and colleagues showed that consciousness could simply be an emergent property of a system, the brain, that seeks to maximize information exchange and therefore entropy. So, this was a really interesting article showing that the brain, as it exchanges information, actually increases its entropy, has higher entropy. Um, Aristotle's final cause would be that humans are ultimately intended for creative evolution and dispersion of knowledge in response to the physical world. So, this is just tying it back in with Aristotle's final cause that maybe the purpose of the teleology of humans is to create and spread, disperse creative knowledge. This is kind of very Whiteheadian in the sense that this is kind of a quadrant of possibility, of kind of creative um, emergence of knowledge, and so it still has a lot of agency. It has a lot of self creation possible. It's not causally determined. But it still has high entropy because the decisions haven't been made yet. There's still freedom in how that creative knowledge works out. When a material body dies, it loses all agency, and the disintegration leads to high thermodynamic entropy, returning matter back down to the first quadrant, where it begins its journey to order and cognition anew. So this was just sort of saying that when the physical body dies, it dissipates, it disintegrates, and returns back down to the first quadrant, kind of starting this process over, the physical aspect of this process over, while the consciousness remains. The consciousness and the knowledge can remain for eternity as long as the knowledge is passed down. Okay, that's pretty much all of the concepts that I discussed in the paper. I was just trying to tie together a lot of these things that we've explored throughout this semester. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my presentation. Okay, bye-bye.